Arthur, this is the Global Digest think tank. You've been in Burma and many South Asian countries. You work for a lot of education issue, and you said you are doing now North Star skill for development. So, what is your organization? What are you doing right now? Please.
Yeah, I've worked in India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Burma.
I
And
see.
I've worked in East Timor.
I see you've been in Burma. Interesting. Which year you was there?
That was about, let's see. I finished in Bangladesh in 2015, so 2016.
I see.
2016. Yeah.
During Aung San Suu Kyi government, right?
I think there was a transfer that year from the military to Aung San Suu Kyi.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I was working previously. I visited for 2 weeks. I was working in Bangladesh, and I was working in Burma, in the Myanmar, in the ILO office, International Labor Organization office.
I,
And I was actually working on my Bangladesh project, but from Burma, because I wanted to see what was going on there, with the intention of later on joining a project there that was being funded either by the Asia Development Bank or GIZ or one of those development agencies. In the event that didn't happen, and later on I went to Malawi in Africa and worked there for 4 years with UNESCO.
right.
But
So,
while I was when I went back to Burma for that 2016, I did a couple of projects. One with the Methodists, doing some work on vocational education, and also one with a French development organization, also in that area of vocational education. We were doing up some training needs surveys and capacity studies up near the border to determine what kind of jobs there might be for returning refugees from Thailand. And I submitted 2 reports to the different parties in those areas. This past year, I've done some work with the International Labor Organization with Saudi Arabia. We were working with the Ministry of what used to be called the Ministry of Labor. It's now Human Resources and Social Development Ministry in Riyadh. They're working to reform the TVET system in Saudi Arabia and make it more responsive to industry demands. I hadn't been back in Saudi for 40 years.
I
So when I went back, it was amazing the amount of development that had happened. The roadworks, the physical construction, the new buildings, it was quite amazing. The government was getting a lot of advice from different consulting firms, my international consulting work. My website, North Star Skills for Development, is currently talking about international development, what it is, sustainable development goals, with the idea of making Canadians a little more aware of, for those who are interested, what they can do to help in international development. I was a Canadian volunteer teaching school in Africa. I had my 21st birthday there. I went back later and managed a CUSO program, Canadian Volunteer Program in Ghana. We had about 80 volunteers, everybody from teachers to nurses to doctors to mechanics and carpenters and stuff. Now that program was in the early to mid 70s and 80s. Those programs in some countries have closed, like Nigeria is closed, Ghana is closed, because of course they've trained their own teachers now. They've got their own doctors. But there are still opportunities for volunteer agencies placing people people in certain countries in East Africa, West Africa, Caribbean, South America, and Northern Canada. And my website is making my blog is making readers aware of what opportunities there are, what kind of skills you need, what's it like to volunteer, how do you apply, contact information. So, and I've had lots of queries about, okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that information. I'm going to follow up and see, because you've given me the website, I can check. I mean, I mentioned volunteer agencies in the US, the Peace Corps. I mentioned VSO in the UK. I mentioned CUSO and WUSC in Canada. I mentioned Catalyst Plus. And Catalyst Plus, this volunteer agency in Canada is placing volunteers with specialized skills on short assignments, up to the age of late 70s. Someone can go, then they can do that either in country or they can do it online. And that's good news for me, because I'm in my 70s now, so I can either do consulting or volunteering.
I see. So I don't know, among your trainee, you did a lot of training and consulting. They are also able to go to work in Canada. Maybe Canada may demand labor or may not, or although you have a big territory, big land. So I don't
Yeah.
know how Canada demand or not.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question specifically about Canada, because um, the Canadian government was getting complaints of too many temporary foreign workers coming in, particularly in Canadian province of Quebec. So the government decided to cut back the number of temporary workers that were being invited in. One of the challenges, not only in Canada but in other countries, is housing. There's not enough housing for the growing Canadian population, and so Canada is slowing down the number of migrant workers coming in. And also, we had a very large program for foreign students from India, particularly, and other places like China, for places at universities and technical colleges. And we found that that they increased the price of houses and rental properties. So also the government said, hold on now, maybe we better slow down that as well. So we're still, I think the Canadian government was looking at immigrants coming into Canada 500,000 per year, 500K per year. I think they're slowing that down because there's an issue of absorptive capacity. Are there sufficient jobs? Is there sufficient housing, and so on? But the Canadian government, there's a Global Affairs Canada scholarship program now that's being managed by Colleges and Institutes Canada, which is providing scholarship opportunities for about 5,000 students from a number of countries, Anglophone countries, Francophone countries, mainly in Africa. And some of these scholarships will allow to be used in country at approved programs, institutions on there, and also for others there are scholarship opportunities in Canada at Canadian institutions. So Canada is still very much a player in international development. Global Affairs Canada is in charge of that. Yeah.
Then compete with US, because
well, we know our place. We're a bigger country. We've got the longest coastline in the world, but they're a bigger neighbor, much bigger neighbor. We're currently 40 million. The U.S. somewhere between 340 million or 400 million. I just forget which, but we're good partners. We have a very large. They're our biggest trading partner. We have good relations all around. There are a few trade tensions, but we negotiate those in good faith. So yeah, I mean, we are where we are. We also it's a free trade agreement in Canada, Mexico, and North American trade agreement, Mexico, Canada, the U.S. So it was renegotiated under President Trump. If he gets back in, it might be renegotiated again. But I think most Canadians are quite happy with the arrangements with the U.S. We've got a lot of car assembly plants here. There's a lot of investment in the new electric car areas. We have rare earth minerals in parts of Canada that are drawing investment from different parts of the world. We have this part of Canada, Newfoundland, just north of Nova Scotia. The government of Newfoundland and Canada hydrogen in coming years to help Germany move towards green energy. So lots of things happening. Lots of them are positive. There's still some challenges about illegal migration and so on, but like every country, we have our challenges and we work on them.
Right.
There have been challenges with a number of countries, actually. The last 6 months, there have been a parliamentary approved inquiry about foreign country interference in Canadian politics. That highlighted China trying to influence certain by-elections where there was Canadian Chinese citizen who was running for a couple of them who were running for office, and they were trying to influence the elections. Now, as recent as yesterday, Canada expelled 5 Indian diplomats, and India replied by a notice of expulsion for 5 Canadian diplomats over what is alleged to be Indian interference in Canadian politics, and in fact, collusion of some of the Indian High Commission staff in the murder of a Sikh activist in British Columbia. So it's a big kerfluffle currently going on. We hope that calms down because we're both democracies and we're both working for the betterment of our people. So I'm not going to get into that more because that's a high-level political thing, but it is happening. In terms of the economics, Canada, like the U.S. and Europe, I think are not accepting certain telecommunications products from China, Huawei, telecom products, and other Chinese company products in that sector because they're afraid of Chinese government, involvement with that Secret Service and so on.
Right.
Currently the Canada I think has said it's going to introduce a high tariff on Japanese electric cars, much as the U.S. has done and much as Europe has done. And Chinese did not like that, and they're currently looking at what Canadian products they can try to keep out of China. All these things happen. Look at what's happened in Burma with the civil strife, being a bordering country is having some influence there. But anyway, again, I haven't been back in Burma for quite a while, so I can only comment on what I see in the news. I did see an interesting interview from Aung San Suu Kyi's son, one of her sons, on the BBC recently, and he was trying to encourage Western governments to not forget what's happening in Burma and to remember that she was a properly elected president and should have been in power. But the day before they were to take over the government, the military came in, and so she's in prison, I guess, in Burma, and in a not very nice prison, from what her son was saying. So he was encouraging people to speak out, governments to speak out, to put pressure on Burma to release and get that government back in power. You would know much more about that than me, but it does worry me. It worries me. Burma worries me what's happening there. I worked in Gaza for 2 years with UNRWA. What's happening there breaks my heart. And the other places, Ukraine and so on.
I'm also one of liberal democracy activists. I'm doing campaign and promoting, advocating for liberal democracy in Burma. in line with North America, Europe, liberal democracy. Most democracy in Asia, you may see very flawed democracy or uh, very weak democracy, or they are not able to go advanced level democracy. So that's why I'm promoting liberal democracy as the highest advanced liberal democracy system. And many Burmese, they don't know about different layer, different quality of democracy. Most Burmese, they just think they vote and elected, that is finished. They don't know what are human rights standard, what are rule of law, and many other things. Now, the Burmese problem is rule of law related to military. Military doesn't know or did not want to be part of rule of law. They don't want to be under civilian control government. They just want to be upper hand by using gun. At the point of gun, they can, manipulate everything in the politics, economy, in the country. That is out of date in advanced democracy country, liberal democracy country in Canada, Europe. No military, no army officer are doing like that, or they don't interest to do that. But Burmese military, the general, they are still doing continuously 70 years. So that is the problem in Burma. That's the result in 2021, military coup. And I'm not appreciate democratic group as well, even opposition group or elected member of parliament. They are lack of knowledge, liberal democracy knowledge, compared to Europe, Canada, US.
Mm.
That's the reason they could not prepare, or they could not, arrange, manage how to prevent or how to prepare such kind of collapse, or now it's failed state. So nobody prepared and prevented either member of parliament, elected leaders, and military. Military, forget about that. They will never think about the authoritarian behavior. So that's Burmese situation, and Burmese population are far away to understand the quality of democracy. They even not, properly enough knowledge or experience of voting, just election. First step also, they still don't know, because they
Yeah,
just voting not for policy or not for the whole national interest or national necessary. They just, like that popularist voting. If they see whether Mr. Big or Mr. But in Burmese case, we are not in that position, because we have to do many basic things. We are not yet laid out the foundation properly. We did not make proper framework in the country. Democracy was not consolidated. So if we are not consolidated democracy, we have very carefully, election and very careful preparation. In America, you can vote anybody because there is a consolidated democracy, no problem. They are all mature. Burmese case, not mature. That's problem. So when you was in 2016, you went Burma, and how long you can able to stay in Burma, and how did you see what are the problem in terms of the country politics, democracy, or and also education. Education. Education is very important.
Yeah.
To develop their understanding, knowledge, and if they are good knowledge, they can also decide how, what is appropriate to vote and what is appropriate to involve in uh, the country development and democracy promotion. So, how's your experience in Burma?
Yeah. My experience was brief, but from what I saw, the vocational schools were doing good work. They were trying to link with the employers to make sure that the training programs they had had the proper content and the proper skills included. Um, I was focusing in particular in the areas along the border with Thailand because the hope was that by identifying job demands in that area, people coming back from Thailand, say returned refugees, they could do some training in Thailand before they came back, or they could be given upskilling when they did come back to Burma, so that they could get into the jobs that were available. I know that there were a number of new hotels in those areas. There were some new ready-made garment factories that were operating with Chinese, I think Hong Kong Chinese money or Singapore Chinese money, garment factories. Um, but I understood that from talking to some locals that some of these hotels were actually owned by the generals, retired generals. So we had to not work with them. The UN policy was not to engage with those sorts of institutions. Um, the we actually brought when I was there, we had while in Bangladesh, we had developed a national skills development policy and a lot of supporting materials. And I actually had a meeting with the ambassador, High Commissioner, I think he was ambassador though, from Bangladesh in Rangoon, and shared with him this idea of here's a good plan, a national skill development plan. Some of the ideas here might be useful for Burma. And I said, maybe you could bring this up with Aung San Suu Kyi and her Ministry of Education folks to see that some lessons that had been learned in Bangladesh could be applied to Burma. I'm not sure whether that was actually done. And sadly, of course, since I was there, we had the Rohingya crisis, which
Right.
nearly a million people living in Bangladesh. Um, that has to be rectified, of course. But with the military in power, I don't think that's going to happen because
Right.
they have their own views about national, which it seems to me are just their own people. This is the nation. They're not thinking about all the other ethnic groups that are around the country that they're attacking within the civil wars that are going on now. So it's a challenge. I think Aung San Suu Kyi's son on that BBC broadcast a week ago was saying, "Look, Western powers should look at Burma, support those bodies that are fighting for independence, put pressure on the military where they can to try to loosen their grip on power." But I must say that following on your point about it's an immature democracy, it's correct. I mean, I was there at the start of Aung San Suu Kyi's first term. It takes a while for democracy to be understood. It takes a while through public education, public discourse, for people to understand what the meaning of citizenship should be, what it is, and what it should be, what the responsibilities of citizenry is versus the government, and the role of government versus the citizens of the country. I mean, Myanmar, Burma is a complex country. It has been for
Right.
many years, from what I understand, different ethnic groups and so on and so forth. So the challenges are great, but I'm sad to hear that there's not too much action internationally about Burma and Myanmar to try to get it back on its feet, a democratic feet. And I feel for Aung San Suu Kyi being in prison, and I think her son said, "Look, I haven't heard from her in more than 6 months, and he doesn't even know where she is." These are challenges that
Right.
shouldn't be allowed to happen. Um, so I mean, but as a country, the natural resources that it has, the fantastic cultural exhibits from long thousands of years ago, the potential, the beaches, the friendliness of the people, uh, you know, are just so enticing that given a chance, Burma should be a really fantastic country with opportunities for everybody. But right now, from what I can see, the military are, compressing everything except any any companies that are in their own interests. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I do hope that the international community can come in and put some pressure, talk to different players that are engaged in these activities, this fighting in Burma, and um, help that come to an end with a successful conclusion, and so that democracy can be returned. The military has to learn that they should be able to live hands off. That's not the role of military to government. That's for defense. But it
Right.
seems to me that that's not what's happening right now.
Have you ever met or have you ever talked with Aung San Suu Kyi when you was in Burma?
No, I did not. I did not have that pleasure. Um, I was. I, I'm just smiling now because when I left Bangladesh, I was in Bangladesh for 7 years working, and when I was leaving Bangladesh, there was a going away party, and the folks on the project, folks said, "Well, Arthur, what are you going to do in Bangladesh?" Because at the time I was going to visit, and I hoped to live there for a little while. I had a friend who was a teacher there, and they said, "What are you going to do there?" Well, I said, "I don't really know, but I hope to meet Aung San Suu Kyi because I'm a divorced man. I'm a widower with two female children. She's a widower with two male children. You never know. Maybe we can hook up." But but in fact, I never had the opportunity to meet her. But I must say the fact that she was able to run a government for a full term with the military looking over her shoulder um, was something quite incredible. The fact that she was misinformed by the military about what they were doing is very sad. But she should be released from prison, and that previous government, allowed to take power. That's my sense. That's my assessment.
Right. I mean, she was also mistaken. She did not prepare, and she was too soft, I guess, too soft and very much not prepared for any military action or military coup. She know very well the military will do action uh, coup, but she was so soft and she did not prepare. Always she and Suki and NLD party always say people, we are, they are always talking about people, but they did not give them a sign or warning or any preparation. If the storm is coming, people should know where to escape or how to prevent the storm,
Hmm.
any cyclone, any disaster. They did not give any those kind of signal and how to be readiness. And they just, bullying and whenever they got military uh, arrested or military attack. They just provoking the people, and unnecessary. A lot of innocent die, and a lot of innocent were, lost their home, their property, and conflict nationwide. I mean, if they are prepared, there should be very less casualty and less conflict. Even in 2021, they can, make a deal within a few days or few months, then finish. We don't need to be prolonged the conflict like Bangladesh, the leaders, they prepare. The prime minister left the country, and the military and other civil society arrange, and then the political conflict is finished. They just move to next step, how to prepare for another political step in Bangladesh. Even the prime minister can return back later. Even she can try for re-election. If she wins, she can become again. That's an easy way of solving political conflict. In Burmese case, the leader I can blame the leader are very fasting. They are responsible. They don't have a good heart, and they don't have a good mind for Burmese people. They always use people, but they, even, Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD, I can say, they have not given the signal or the readiness how to prevent such kind of political disaster to the people. They just provoke, and people are unnecessary. I can say, yeah, these are unnecessary problem, conflict, because of their mistake, their weakness. Of course, the military leader selfish. They are not a good heart since, it's already 70 years. So Burmese case, the leader are very bad. They don't have a good heart and a good mind, and how to make a good country. They don't have, they never think about that. So that is problem in Burma. So, education is also important. As you said, you work mostly in the Bora, mostly probably a refugee area, right, and migrant located area. And I see a lot of international donor, overseas development assistance, or government assistance, international assistance, or private sector assistance. They are willing to help. They provided assistance to, willing to provide assistance in Thailand and Bangladesh, those countries. But I noticed international assistance, overseas development assistance, or any international assistance in Burma, they are not willing to provide assistance in Burma. Before also, during democratic country also, compared to other countries. And of course, military case will be less assistance. It should not. It's understandable. International assistance did not provide to military government, but even democratic government, why international assistance are not willing to support in Burma? even now humanitarian assistance to help innocent people. I mean, people to people. No need to go with military. But international system and development system are not willing to provide them. Provide in Burma. Why do you think? How do you think?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I know that when I was in Burma, I contacted the Canadian embassy there to find out what they were doing, and they were doing a number of projects in Burma, and we're trying to and we're planning other ones. But as soon as the military coup happened, I know that they stopped all projects and withdrew, as far as I know. I don't know if there's, I don't know, to be honest, if there's a current Canadian embassy operating in Burma or what they're doing in for development. I was impressed when I was there by, as you said, the number of international agencies that were starting to work in Burma after the military went into the background. And I was doubly impressed by the database that the UN had put together of all the international players working in Burma. There was a fantastic database of each international agency, what district they were working in, what they were doing, the progress of that project. So it was very easy as someone coming in new to see what was going on. And when I was there doing that work, I always checked that database to see in the places where I was going what other agencies were working there, so that when I went, one of the first things I did was to knock on their doors and get more details, so that what we were planning in the projects I was putting together did not replicate, but where possible, work together with those agencies. In terms of the current situation, I would have to go back to the UNDP website. That's where I usually check. So I don't know. I haven't been there for a number of years. I don't know what the UN is doing in Burma. I suspect that there are a number of activities that are still going on. Uh, as you said, not working with the military, but probably with NGOs. But again, I haven't been back, so I'm not sure. Certainly, my impression is that, like many developing countries, Burma would benefit from, as you say, people-to-people coordination,
Right.
communication. Um, One of the nice things about living in Rangoon at the time was the cultural things that were being organized. I mean, there were ballet companies, there were high-profile entertainers coming to Burma and really sharing, and not only that, but reverse culture exchange too. I enjoyed going to a number of puppet shows in Rangoon, and actually going to the puppet factory to see where they were made. The only disappointing thing was that the puppet makers were getting very old, and their children were not so interested in taking on that particular aspect. But like I said before, Burma's got so much culture to share. I do hope that the situation improves. And I can't comment on your comments because you're a Burmese national and so you know much better than me. But uh, I guess I would only say uh, whatever happened in the past is the past to some extent. And the more urgent question would be, how can the country get out of the current conundrum where you have so many players uh, fighting to get rid of that Burmese military government. Uh, and as the Aung San Suu Kyi's son said on that BBC interview, I hope that the international governments, foreign governments, don't forget about Burma, that they come and try to re-engage in one way or another by supporting the opposition groups, so that Burma can get back to a situation where the citizens can enjoy and learn about democracy, where they can enjoy a prosperous economy, where they can get their children to education, get food on the table, can look forward to a bright future, and not the chaos that's going on now for many parts of the country. That's my wish. I think it's going to take international pressure, international engagement to make that happen, and I do hope that happens.
Now even UN OCHA, humanitarian organization, they know about 20 million in need of humanitarian aid. But I mean, it can be delivered either through people to people, civil society, NGO, or as you experience cross-border, through border area, you've been in Thai-Burma border in that way, or Indian-Burma border, as you also been in Bangladesh-Burma border. There are many borders that delivering point humanitarian aids. I mean, that's one way. Also, some might be delivered through military government. I don't, it may be not much serious than others because military have a lot of actually the national resources, they can use within military control area, but other countryside, rural area, those military did not control area and mixed group control area, there are more urgent resources are necessary because the ethnic, those opposition or ethnic group or civilian arms group, they are not controlling national resources, national fund, income, income resources. Because military been controlling national resources, all the wealth of the country for many years, so they keep it, they have it. But opposition, they just come out recent year to against military, so they don't have any resources. That area will be more urgent. But whenever I, campaign either in Europe, America, Australia, many other rich countries, but they have no interest that, nobody much pay attention or willing to, work for humanitarian aid in Burma. That is up to military even till now, What were the main reason, do you think? I know there is a conflict in Europe, Ukraine cases, and also in Middle East, Israeli, even now Lebanon, Israeli-Palestine conflict. Also, there are some African crises. Although many crises, they should not forget, as you said, Aung San Suu Kyi's broadcasting BBC. What made they are not willing to, support humanitarian aid in Burma? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't either. Certainly, I would think there would be opportunities to work with NGOs and so on. But again, I've been out of the country for a long time. You're the nationalist Burmese person, a better,
Right.
much better spokesman for me. I can only say, maybe as a personal thing, what I can do is to I posted something about East Timor uh, a couple of days ago about their development and what they're doing. I on my blog on my website personally, I can write something up about Burma and the situation and what
Sure, please write
could
it.
be considered. Yeah, yeah. I can do that personally, and I do know the local MLA and so on. I don't know if we have Burmese refugees here, but on a recent trip to Europe, there were a number of people working in restaurants and so on that were from Burma, and they were working there and probably sending some of their money back to their families in
Well,
Burma to help them
I
out.
mean, a lot of Burmese refugee overseas or those who become citizen in different country, they can send back. Oh, most of them Burmese survive because of their relative and Burmese overseas money, you know. Without that, Burmese will be not survive. Many innocent people will not survive, you know, because of the overseas Burmese contribution is number one in Burma, you know. That's understand. Also, I think in Canada also Burmese refugee too. You know, last
Yeah.
time I wrote a letter to Prime Minister of Canada. They saw my letter. I request something for supporting democracy, and they acknowledged my letter and they reply letter, but there was no further step. I mean, they just uh, no information. They nobody doing another action, another step.
I care for
It's
the
advocating.
people everywhere I worked, and Burma is one special place. Given the situation, the military control, and so on. I know the member of parliament for my constituency here in Nova Scotia, Lena Metledge Diab. She's actually originally from Lebanon years ago. I was speaking to her and to the consul general in Nova Scotia for Lebanon about what Canada could do before this trouble with Israel happened in terms of uh, skills development and training of people over there. I did a project with the ILO that focused on skills training in Lebanon a couple of years ago. But I can certainly take up your recommendation. They're the one used to be CEDA, called CEDA, Canadian CEDA, and they do the international development programming. So again, a query to them about what they're doing or could do in Myanmar would be probably helpful. So I'll do both those things.
And I'm also now doing a peace building project with many international countries, those important countries. I am engaging with many countries. If we can successfully able to lobby with many key countries and Burmese stakeholder, we can solve the crisis earlier, you know, because nobody initiating practically, you know, always people they are lip service. They will do this much. People are like that, you know, they just come and see and then they say complicated and they stop. Another person come and see, they said complicated, stop. Nobody practically doing, you know. They just see they just see the ground of building house, but nobody building the house. So probably they don't know, they have no idea very well how to build, or they also maybe not interested, and those people are always uh, come to Burma issue, So now I'm I'm focusing how to build up. We have to, stop all this. Uh, Many people come and see and doing nothing. That is enough. We should build it. So, well, meanwhile, we are building peace building in Burma. At the same time, we need urgently humanitarian that I think you can help them. You can also have in development in education. You have experience.
Yeah.
So
Well, I would commend the work that you're doing. It's important work. I was just thinking now that the Canadian ambassador to the UN comes to Halifax from time to time, and I've written to him personally on some other issues. I don't know if it's had any effect, but again, it's another Canadian high-level diplomat who could be reminded about the situation in Burma. Um, I think he's coming to Halifax in a few weeks, and is having an open house talking about whether the UN is relevant. And so anyway, that's an opportunity to ask the questions about Burma, what Canada is doing, can do. And if that's not possible, certainly I have his address and can write him. So again, something else I can do it on the personal side to see what Canada can change in its activities with Burma.